Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming for this first webinar about geodiversity and geoconservation, a new theme for Panorama Solutions. My name is Manu Monge Ganuzas. I come from Basque Country. I am PhD in geology. I'm working on the Biosphere Reserve of Urdaibai in the north of Spain. And also I am part of the Spanish Geological Society from the Georetouch Commission. And also I am member of ProGeo and member of the Geospecialist group of IUCN. I'm be the chairman of this session. This session is hosted by the Spanish Geological Survey of Spain. We have Juana somewhere moving the words. Mainly this webinar has been organized by ProGeo. ProGeo is an NGO in charge of the conservation of georetouch in Europe and probably the next months or years in the worldwide. We have been collaborating very close to Panorama partnership, and we are really happy about this collaboration. And that's the first one, the first webinar that we are launching, but probably in the next future we will have more. Mainly, we'll have 3 talks. One from Rosemary Metz, second one from Enrique Díaz Martínez, and the third one from Aissa Traore. More or less, we'll have 50 minutes to speak about it, and 50 minutes each. And after it, we'll have the possibility to make questions, and we'll try to answer all of them. If that's not possible, we will do it later by email. Okay, so there in the application, you have the possibility to make questions. So please make questions anytime. I'll be checking them, and if they are interesting, I'll pass them to the speakers. That's all. So firstly, we have Rosemary Metz. Rosemary Metz, she's a landscape ecologist. He has spent more than 20 years working on international cooperation. She is a senior advisor in the division of the climate change, rural development and infrastructure of the German Cooperation International Agency. Also, she has been in Argentina, Bolivia. She speaks Spanish very well. I noticed it. Paraguay, Vietnam, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and also at Serbia. In areas like biodiversity conservation, protected area management, rural development, sustainable management of natural resources. So let's go. The floor is yours, Rosemary.
Okay, thank you very much, Manu, for introduction of the webinar and for introducing me, and very much also from my side, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It is really a great pleasure for me to present Panorama Solutions for a Healthy Planet today to you, and also to jointly reflect on how Panorama could maybe used in a more strategic way also within the geoconservation community. I am really happy, and I would like to thank to the organizers for organizing this webinar. It's really good to see how much interest we could generate with this webinar and how many participants we have with us today. So very welcome, and let me share a presentation to introduce Panorama to you. Okay, so Panorama Solutions for a Healthy Planet is a partnership initiative, and the basic idea of Panorama is to learn from what works in nature conservation and in sustainable development. And we are doing this by documenting and promoting examples of inspiring replicable solutions across a range of different conservation and sustainable development topics and enable cross-sectoral learning and inspiration thereby. You can see here on the right side on top the current 10 PANORAMA partner organizations. It's basically quite important organizations from nature conservation and development. GIZ and IUCN are currently hosting the Secretariat of PANORAMA, and we all jointly decide on the development path of the initiative among these 10 partners. We are acting actually with PANORAMA in two directions, I would say. We are contributing to the achievement of global policy goals. You can see here a few of them, the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, the Aichi targets under the CBD, but there are more global goals that are relevant for PANORAMA, also under the UNFCCC, for example, or in the urban development area. On the other side, we are contributing to the dissemination and the scaling of successful solutions on the ground, and thus PANORAMA is creating impacts at both at local practical level as well as at political level. One hard piece of PANORAMA is the online platform and database, which is openly accessible and which contains all the different solutions from all over the world, which you will know better in this presentation. PANORAMA is promoting global learning from local action, and to do so we have developed a PANORAMA solutioning methodology and approach, and I would like to enter here by talking a little bit about what is a solution in the view of, or in the context of PANORAMA. We are defining solutions within PANORAMA in a quite broad manner. Solutions can be tools or methods or processes, approaches, policies, technologies. The important thing is that they work and that they can inspire action in other contexts as well. So they should be scalable and replicable, but very important, they have to already have had an impact. So we are not publishing ideas or concepts, but only solutions that already have proven to work and have already created an impact. And they should, of course, fit into the wider scope of PANORAMA, which is nature conservation and sustainable development, as I already mentioned. Here at the right side, you can see a couple of numbers. We have currently 803 solutions on the PANORAMA platform, containing nearly 1,900 building blocks. I will come back to what this is later. And these solutions have been provided by 577 solution providers from all over the world. Currently, we have solutions from 117 countries worldwide. If we describe the PANORAMA approach in a nutshell, I would say we have on one hand side, we are using a modular case study format to document the solution. And this modular format allows to break the overall experience down into so-called building blocks. And these are the aspects and factors that made the solution a success story. Then we are applying a learning and innovation methodology that relies on peer-to-peer exchange, and which is applicable across different topics, sectors, audiences, geographies. We do have a quality and review system to make sure that the solutions adhere to defined quality standards. Before they are published, each solution goes through a peer review process and is peer reviewed by a subject matter expert, and only then it is published on PANORAMA on the website. And we are combining in a quite unique manner online and offline learnings. And this overall approach enables and facilitates the replication of solutions in other contexts. So this is basically the idea behind the approach. The solutions on PANORAMA are organized in so-called thematic communities. And these thematic communities are coordinated by one or a consortium of different partner organizations. So here on this slide, you see on the left side the currently existing 7 thematic communities. You can see in the middle which partner organizations are coordinating these thematic communities. And you can see at the right side some new upcoming thematic communities which are all already in a phase of preparation, like the first one, the species conservation thematic community, or still in discussion. So there are also more partners interested in joining in with new themes. And this is something important that I would like to mention here, that PANORAMA is a very open and very inclusive partnership, and we are highly welcoming new partners and new thematic areas within PANORAMA. So we wish to grow in a sound manner. And this is, I think, also relevant here in our webinar, because for geoconservation, we have so far inserted a new filter on PANORAMA, which allows to tag and to find related solutions. But in case there is an interest within the geoconservation community to develop, to create an own thematic community for this theme, then this is absolutely possible. And you will hear later in the webinar a bit more what it means to establish a thematic community and what is needed for that. So I mentioned before that we do combine different face-to-face and digital and print media. And this is something that we consider also an important success factor within the PANORAMA approach, because it leads to a quite innovative and integrated knowledge sharing and peer-to-peer learning way. Here on that slide, you can see some of the things that we are using normally. Of course, the face-to-face meetings are currently mainly replaced through virtual meetings due to the corona pandemic as well. But normally we are organizing face-to-face meetings, like workshops, like training events, like side events at conferences. We also organize solution search events, or what we call solution fairs, where we bring together people who have solutions available and people who are confronted with similar challenges, so that there can be a direct exchange of experience and of solutions that have already worked. Regarding communications, we are using publications, we are sending out newsletters, holding webinars like the one today, also using social media, and of course the platform as such is the hard piece, I would say. And here finally I would like to draw your attention to the huge PANORAMA network of currently 577 solution providers from all over the world. Because I mean, here you see only a small selection of logos, but behind the over 800 solutions that we have currently on the platform, there are also hundreds of practitioners and organizations of all type, actually. So we do have small and big NGOs, we have government organizations, academic institutions, development agencies, cities, private sector actors. So a great variety of organizations and persons from these organizations who have shared their successful work and their experience on PANORAMA and have also been inspired by other solutions that they found on PANORAMA. And this is actually what fills our approach of learning from what works with life. So is a whole huge network of persons and organizations behind. And with that, I actually would like to finalize this short introduction. I thank you very much for your attention. I'm handing back to Manu, and I'm looking very much forward to answer your question in a later moment of this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. It has been great, your framework. This has been the first part of the webinar, and we have realized about what PANORAMA solution is. I have to tell you that we are more than 150 people attending the webinar, people from America, from Mexico, from Canada, from Colombia, from Argentina as well, from Africa as well, Morocco, Mali, Congo, also Asia. We have people from India, from Taiwan, Philippines, and why not Europe as well. People from Spain, from Denmark, Portugal, UK, France, Germany. You are really happy to share with you all those interesting information and to share with all the world, as I can see here in my piece of paper. Secondly, we'll have some information about what geoconservation is. We have Enrique Díaz Martínez. Enrique Díaz Martínez is worker of the Geological Survey of Spain. He's part of the crew in charge of geoconservation there in the Spanish ministry. He is PhD in geology, MSc in protected area, in management of protected areas. He has spent more than 25 years working on geo-heritage inventories, legislation, management, dissemination, and also he has been working for the Bolivian Geological Survey and the Spanish National Research Council, also in France in the Institute of Investigation for the Development. And also he's part of the geo-heritage specialist crew of IUCN and the secretary, the executive secretary of the European Association for the Conservation of Geo-heritage, ProGeo, the NGO that I've been talking about before. So, Enrique, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will start right now the presentation. I'm going to talk about the basic concepts and the actions that are supposed to be towards the geoconservation. As you might imagine, we are talking about PANORAMA because it hosts the possibility to share experiences in the conservation of nature, and I'm going to talk about that specific area, what we call the abiotic nature, so not habitat, species, or ecosystems, but everything that's underneath that is conditioning this type of evolution of the Earth with regard to life. This is what I will be talking about. A little introduction to give you some basic ideas of the history of the of geoconservation. Then I will explain very briefly some concepts, and then show you some examples of the actions that should be coming with geoconservation that hopefully you will be able to share through the PANORAMA Solutions platform. I will talk about these things: inventories, legislation, management, and public use. Those are the 4 main issues that are related with geoconservation. But first, you need to know where geoconservation comes from. Here is a list of the main events, main points in the history of geoconservation. One of the first ones, I mean, we can consider that it started about 35 years ago, and that's when we also started talking about geodiversity and geoheritage. So I will explain all these concepts, but just so you have an idea that we are talking over the shoulders of previous people that have been working on these issues of the geoheritage, geodiversity, and geoconservation. The first international meeting was in '88. There is one important declaration that has been that we are still using, which is the Declaration of the Rights of the Memory of the Earth. It's also called the IGME Declaration, and that was approved by all the participants in the first international symposium on the conservation of geological heritage. You will see that there's a Progeo that Manu has been mentioning in the introduction. ProProGeo is one of the organizers of this event, this webinar. I am the executive secretary, and this organization was began in the late 80s, but had its first General Assembly. The official inauguration was in 1993. We have another important issue with regard with geoconservation, which is when the geopark started. That was in 2000 for the European network, and 2004 for the global geopark network. And you can see that also the IUCN originally didn't have any members that were specifically working towards geoconservation. And the first one that came in was the Geological Survey of Spain in 2008. That was the first geoconservation member of IUCN. You will see later that now there's 3 of them. In 2011, it was ProGeo, and in 2015, the Spanish Society for the Protection of Geological and Mining Heritage. So now there's 3 non-governmental organizations that are working specifically on topics of geoconservation. And this is important because it means that previous to the year 2008, there was no members in IUCN. That's why we have to work on this public outreach of how geoconservation is also important for the whole of nature conservation, that geodiversity is part of natural diversity, and that geoheritage is part of natural heritage. Another thing in here that I just wanted to show you is that the first resolution dealing with geoheritage came just because the Geological Survey of Spain, we were there at this Congress in 2008. Then we had another one in the next Congress, 2012, another one in the next Congress in 2016, and in 2020, the last year, we had 2 resolutions that are directly dealing with geoheritage. So as you can see, the process of getting IUCN and the general conservation of nature, all the community that is working in these topics, involved into the also not forgetting this abiotic part, the geological, geomorphological, paleontological, all these aspects are also important because it is the record of the history of the Earth, and this includes also the record of life, the record of climates, and you will understand immediately why this is important. There are 5 words that are very frequently now used, but they weren't so much used 30, 40 years ago. That's the term geodiversity. You can imagine if you know what's biodiversity. So, but we prefer to restrict it not to refer to the elements, but to refer to the variety of the elements. So geodiversity refers to the variety of natural abiotic elements and processes. And then geoheritage refers to a selection of those elements, of natural abiotic elements and processes that are of interest. This is the important part. Interesting elements that are selected. And that's where geoconservation comes in, because they are of interest. We have to preserve them for the future generations. That's what refers to geoconservation. All those strategies, programs, and actions that are done towards the conservation of geoheritage and geodiversity. And then there's two other terms that lately, maybe for some of you, you think they are like very, very common, but 30, 40 years ago, nobody was talking about geotourism, nobody was talking about geoparks. Now we have, I don't know if we can reach 200, but we are almost there for the geoparks, and geotourism already has become a very important aspect for the socioeconomic development in many areas of the world. Geotourism refers to the tourism which is oriented specifically to this geoheritage and geodiversity and geoparks. For example, we will see now, well, I know I was showing the previous slide that the UNESCO in 2015 has officially adopted the global geopark, UNESCO global geoparks, and so now they require, for example, that a geopark that is officially acknowledged by the UNESCO needs to have geoheritage of international relevance, and apart from many other issues for the tourism, it has to, of course, focus also on the conservation, education, and tourism on this geoheritage that they have in the territory. So these are the 5 new geos, as we call them, words that have been lately begun to be progressively more used. Geodiversity, as I was mentioning, refers to the variety of the geological elements and the processes that are in a territory. This includes everything that you can think of, for example, the variety of the rocks, the variety of the minerals, the fossils, the variety of landforms, and so on. And all this results from the record of the evolution of the Earth. So because it is a record of the evolution of the Earth, some of them may be very, very interesting, and that's why this becomes important. Geoheritage preserves in a way that we can use it and preserve it for the future, the knowledge that we have about what has happened before. We need to know why climate is changing. We need to know why certain species, certain ecosystems are as they are, how we can contribute to improve certain things. That's only if we know how it has evolved. One thing to understand the difference between geodiversity and geoheritage, which is important, is that geodiversity considers all the geological elements, not only those that have interest, which is the geoheritage, but also any of them, even if they have absolutely no interest. So all the elements are considered when you have to assess the variety of elements, which is the geodiversity. Okay. Now, in geoconservation, as you might imagine already from what I am talking about, is the conservation of geoheritage and geodiversity. It's important to differentiate between what's conservation and what's protection. It is not the same. We protect to preserve. We want to preserve. We want things to be preserved for the future. That is conservation. Protection is the means, and conservation is the objective, the final result of the protection. And for geoconservation, we need to do these actions. That's what we were talking about, geoconservation, the legislation, planning, management, use, that we are necessary to preserve these things for the future. And this management that we are planning need to include legal instruments. That's why we also include in geoconservation legislation, because this will it will allow to enforce the conservation in those cases when there are doubts what has preference. That's why we talk about protected areas. There is a legislation that contributes to geoconservation by protecting areas. This slide refers to heritage in general, okay? The heritage, any heritage, cultural, natural, is a set of elements to which we assign a value. So it refers, heritage are elements with value. Usually we talk about what is inherited, but normally what you want to inherit is things that have value. You don't want to inherit the garbage. We want to inherit things that need to be preserved for our own benefit, okay? And another important issue here that I would like everyone to understand is that the type of element defines or sets the type of heritage. This is what is shown here below in this little formula, the X, element X that has value, that's the V. So if an element has value, then it is heritage. What type of heritage? The same type of element. So if we will see now that heritage as I was saying up here, it refers to the elements with value, then natural heritage, what would it be? Natural heritage would be natural elements with value. The element is natural, and if it has value, we call it natural heritage. And the same thing, what about geoheritage? It is a type, geological elements are a type of natural elements. So if we have geological elements and they have value, then it would be called geoheritage. So geoheritage is geological elements with value. That is the same thing that we are showing here. Geological elements with value is geological heritage. And also I wanted to mention the different types of interest that are more frequently used in the assessment, because we need to assess what's important about each of the sites or of the fossils, minerals, of the objects that we are considering. And so we have to assess the scientific value, the educational value, how it is used for teaching, touristic value, the beauty, the cultural aspects associated with it. Also, not so much in Europe, but in some countries like we know Australia or Colombia, their legislation forces to also consider as those sites that are sacred for communities, for the indigenous people in the case of Colombia, or for the aboriginals in Australia, for example. By law, they have a legislation that says that those sacred sites are also natural elements that have to be preserved for the future. They need to be preserved, so it's also a religious value, mystical value, that has to be also considered in the assessment of the value of the elements in order to know if they are of interest or not. So the main objectives of geoconservation to ensure the conservation of the geoheritage and geodiversity and to benefit from their potential use. We want to use them for the future. That's why we want to preserve things for the future. And of course, we want to have this type of use sustainable. We want to be able to preserve it for the future. It needs to be sustainable. These are the main actions that I was mentioning in the beginning for geoconservation: inventories, legislation, something that enforces and make sure that everybody complies with whatever is needed to preserve the territories or the objects in the museum, specific measures for conservation, and then, of course, to allow the public to enjoy this, to allow the public to understand why this is important, and to allow the public to also benefit from the sustainable use of these sites and these objects, no, in the museums or in the natural parks, in geoparks, wherever it is, no. For this, it is very important in the inventory. The inventory makes sure that we know what we have, because if we don't know what we have, it's impossible to preserve it. So we need to know where it is, the identification, what it is, where is it, how is it classified, and also an assessment. An assessment not only of the value, is it very important for science, for education, but also an assessment of the vulnerability and the risk of degradation. That's what I show here. We need to know where it is, the emplacement. We need to know its relevance, international, national, local, but also the vulnerability and the risk of degradation, which is what will allow us to know what can we do with it. Can we do bring a lot of people there? Shall we not use it maybe only for science? Make up a specific nature reserve? Can it be a natural monument? So these type of decisions will depend on what we have, where it is, how it is classified, and what assessment have we done about the vulnerability. And with it will come the final result, the objective, which is what we want, the conservation, and with it, of course, the sustainable use. And so to finalize, I want to let you know that we have this booklet that we have produced in Spanish and in English. Here is the short URL that you can type in your computer if you want to download the file of the booklet in English. If you're interested, you can also write to me. Also, you can download the one in Spanish from this URL from the Geological Survey of Spain, in case you speak Spanish. And that's all for now. We are also open for questions later in the time that this will be available. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for the organizers, which I am one of them, but to Manu for the presentation, and to Juana, who is behind the the screens with all the controls. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Enrique, for your high explanation. More or less, we have learned a little bit about geoconservation, about georetouch, about the value, about the techniques that normally the geoconservationists or geospecialists used in order to conserve and protect the georetouch and the geodiversity as a whole. But the big question will be answered by Aissa. The big question is, okay, but how can I get into PANORAMA? How can I send a solution into PANORAMA? For that issue, we have Aissa Traore. Aissa Traore is a MSc in communication. She's a program officer of PANORAMA Partnership under the Global Protected Areas program based at the IUCN headquarters in Switzerland. She has been working very hard in civil society organizations with governments and agencies, particularly in Africa and also in Europe. She worked on the field of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, where she was part of the Protection Cluster Coordination. She served as a program management consultant as well for the Francophonie and the African Union election observation missions. And also, she has been working for the European Parliament in Brussels and the permanent mission of Mali to the United Nations in Geneva. So that's all, not less. So, Aissa, are you somewhere there? The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Manuel. Good morning, good evening from Africa, Europe, and all over the world. I'm really pleased to be here. I hope you can see my screen. Yes, okay, thank you. I will have the pleasure to guide you through the activation of a thematic community within PANORAMA, but also how to submit a solution. So, yes, how to activate a thematic community within PANORAMA. First, I would like to just talk about a thematic community in the context of PANORAMA, but also who do you refer as partners? So in the context of PANORAMA, we refer to an entity as partners engaged in the coordination of a particular thematic community. And by thematic community, we mean a community of practice, so about a specific field, which can be conservation, nature, climate, but also protected area. As you can see here, we have now 7 thematic community within PANORAMA, and it's an open partnership. We welcome new partners, but before a candidate who wish to be part of PANORAMA partnership, we have some guidelines, some considerations they have to go through. And then I will just explain here what do we mean by guiding principles. So as guiding principles, we have first consideration for thematic communities and partners when they want to be part of PANORAMA partnership. We welcome a diversity of partners. They can be a consortia or an additions of new institutions from different sectors. It should be also a sustainable partner and transparent. We also welcome new partners because the new partners enjoy the same level of right and responsibility as established partners. So we have now a thematic community, but as new partners, you don't have to say I'm new, so I won't be considered. So this is not the case. We really consider all partners as the same. You should also have an interest in the thematic and be coherent. So the proposed new theme is expected to find in the political interest and support PANORAMA development, so and promote our principles, sustainability, and also human rights. So talking about the guiding principles now, the requirement for a new thematic community. We have a lot of committees within PANORAMA. We have a steering group, we have the technical exchange group, which is composed of all partners. We also have a working group. But before you get into the partnership, you have to pass through the steering group, which has to accept you as a partner. So it's a requirement, because they also make sure all partners have the requirement and understand better PANORAMA philosophy. And you should have a thematic which should fit and scope so to the overall framing of PANORAMA. So you have to facilitate learning, sustainable development. You should also have an alignment with relevant policy and goals. So the proposed theme should be toward achieving sustainable goals and strategic plans, the CBD. We also have indicator for the RT targets. So when you go through those considerations, you also have to give the staff time to allow a staff to be there for the coordination. That's very important for us. And as a consortium of partners, it's recommended to clearly define roles of the participating entities. So you have to agree with the role you should be taking as a new thematic community, because you will be dealing with a new portal, dealing with a community of practitioners, people who are really engaged, who want to bring change, and you will also be verifying new solutions. So I will explain this later on during my presentation. And you also have to promote solutions from all over the world and have a minimum commitment of 24 months. So this is something we also would like our new partners to take care of. You also have to participate in the web development, because PANORAMA is not only offline learnings and project, but we also have a web platform we call PANORAMA platform. But there's also some kind of cost to run the platform, and as a new partners, we really expect you to contribute to the cost of the web platform and the technical cost. Him joining the partnership, you inform the secretariat, which is now coordinated by JZ and IUCN, and you invited to the steering group meetings, and we explain you the onboarding process, and there is a lot of discussion to explore interest and to see if you respond to our requirement considerations. And it's really an engagement, and when someone you have to engage in a new partnership, we also have to accept that you are part, you are welcome in the family, but you also should be proud to be within the family and take ownership of the PANORAMA partnership. After there is a mutual interest, when it has been established, and then the steering group provide a feedback that they're interested, and then it's fine, we can welcome the new partner. And so the information is provided to you that you have been accepted, and then you have to fill in a template in a written form, and this is part of this onboarding process when you have been accepted. There is also a preparation for launching a new theme, because it's a milestone for PANORAMA, and we are also engaged in launching with you the new thematic community. So we can have some promotion, communication activity around it. Now I will explain how to submit solution and the solution format on the Panorama platform. This is something we can do together online. Dear participant, if you would like to be part of the Panorama platform, you can go to the www.panorama.solution and then register. So I will now show you how to do. This is a solution. When you go through the platform, you will find now more than 800 solutions. And how this is done, for every single solution, we have a process. And this is one solution as it appeared on the platform. You have to click on Contribute Solution. Here, as I will show you with the laser here. This is how you have to click here. You can also find it on the footer page of Panorama. You have the possibility to contribute a full solution or a snapshot solution. So you register. You click here. You have to enter your name, email, agree on the term of use of the website, because we really care about our user data. So this is aligned with the EU data protection, and you get a confirmation email. You have to complete your profile, and then you have the choice to contribute a full solution or a snapshot solution. So a full solution will require more time and have a content to contribute, but you can you also have the possibility to have a snapshot solution if you wish. This is the solution template on the platform. You can create a new solution. You have to select a portal among the 7 thematic community. As we just show you now, the title of your solution, the location on the map. I will show you the Panorama website and have some demo after. This is the preview. When you register, you log in after, and then you start creating your solution. This is how it is. This is a test, but this is just to show you. And you have to submit after your solution for review. So all Panorama solutions undergo a review process. So this is what makes Panorama unique, because we have people who care about the quality of our solution. That's why we call them best practice and success stories. Here you have to choose the categories and the implementation level, ecosystem. You really have a lot of possibility to put your solution in. And you have filters, a lot of category, and we even have geoconservation and geodiversity as a theme tag you have on the platform. When uploading solution, you will face building blocks, and building blocks are key success factors of your solution. What makes your solution very unique, and that can be recombined and replicated by other practitioners. So there are elements that make a difference, and here you can talk, you can like describe here what is the building blocks and what makes your solution a very good one, and you should also focus on the key component. And you have a help page for your solution. You really have a lot of material on the website to help you go through the submission of the solution. And you even have a solution provider manual you can read through and have a better understanding. After you submit for review, this is a quality insurance for us, and your solution is reviewed by staff. There are volunteers and sometimes consultant, and they check the quality, and they have to really recognize your solution as a best practice and be sure that you meet the requirement to be published on the Panorama solution. So I wouldn't say a certification, but this is really a great certification to show you that your project was a success story. Now, before I show you the video, I will I would like to go to the website. I will stop sharing my screen again and go to the website and show you now the Panorama website. I hope you can see my screen. Yes. So this is the Panorama website. If you haven't been yet, here we are. You can explore solution, building block, thematic community. We have a resource page, but I would like to explore solutions. And here you have 811 solutions already. This is the solution we have. And then you can choose theme. We have geodiversity and geoconservation and search. I'm just filtering, geodiversity and geoconservation. So now we have all verified solutions under geodiversity and geoconservation. So you are welcome to contribute and be part of Panorama community. So thank you. Now I would like just to share with you a small video.
It's more positive. You look into the solution part because usually you look into problems.
Practitioners really want to learn from each other about what works, what doesn't work. And it's a departure from more traditional approaches to capacity building where an expert or an outside person, maybe a researcher who has studied a solution, but really hasn't been involved with its delivery, him or herself, goes and sort of shares that in another location.
Finding solution is very important because then we can actually solve the problem rather than creating the long-lived problem.
So many practitioners around the world have valuable experiences to share, and it should be multiplied.
Tumbeye is located off the southwest coast of Zanzibar and is the first financially self-sustaining marine protected area in the world. We established more than 20 years ago with a very novel concept of developing ecotourism on the island as a not-for-profit business approach to generate all the financing necessary to run a marine protected area.
There aren't many projects like this worldwide. So when you have something as good as this, you have to nurture it, you have to support it, and you have to tell the world about it. Because the world wants to know these kind of things are happening in Papua New Guinea.
The purpose of the exchange this week in Uganda is to really figure out with the fisher folk if there's appetite for something like abalone, and then of course if we were to use it here, how would we adapt it, how would we reconfigure it, and of course how would we pilot it towards the local ownership.
So sharing my solution here has been one of the best things that I can do.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Manu. Over to you now.
Thank you very much, Aissa, for your nice explanation and also this beautiful video. Right now, I guess that everything is clear, but just in case, let's start with the question and answer section of the webinar. In the time that the speaker were talking, the chat has been on fire. So we have several questions here. First one is for Enrique. It comes from Denmark, Annette Petersen. She is asking as follows. According to IUCN and criteria for protected areas, it is not always necessary to have legislation to protect. There are also OACM. What do you think, Enrique, of that regarding geoprotection? This is one question, and Annette has another one, and I'll try to read it as well. According to IUCN and criteria for protected areas, it's not always necessary, it's the same more or less, but it's not always necessary to have legislation to protect an area. And there are also OACN. What do you, Enrique, think of that regarding geoprotection? Do we need to be more open to other kind of protection besides legislation? Enrique, if you can answer her.
That's right. Thank you for the question, Annette. I had written something, but because the chat will not show on the video, and the video will be left on the, hopefully we will put it on YouTube. We will later send everybody the link. So I will also respond talking to you here. I suppose you are referring to the different kinds of agreements of custody that can be used for the proper use of the territory, for the conservation also, but without the specific need of the administration passing laws and decrees and having this official legislation. Of course, this is always an option, and it will also have to be, as I was telling you there, that the legislation, after all, is an agreement with the society on how things should be done and what happens if you don't do it. And so the text, the agreements that have to be signed by the managers, by the stakeholders, by the administrations that are involved with the management in any territory is more or less the same. If it's the whole society, the whole country, it would be national legislation. Maybe also municipal legislation can be used. At least in Spain, the municipalities have a very strong power for the conservation. But also, you can come to an agreement with the owner of the land and with the users of the land, or with the companies that want to make use of the sustainable use, of course, of the for tourism or whatever, or any sustainable resource. I mean, sustainable use of the resources in the area. The important thing in every case is that it is very clear what are the priorities. The priority is conservation, or the priority is making money, whatever. Even if we get if we lose the resources, so it needs to be very clear what are the priorities in case there are problems with the management and with the use. That's all. So that everybody agrees, the stakeholders, the managers, the administration, in the without the legislation. But it is better, of course, if it is written. So at least I have experience with the agreements of custody of the land in Spain, and it is very frequent, but it needs to be written, because then if somebody does not comply with the conditions, then you need to have some document that says that you can claim damage or whatever. No? So in regard to the webinar that we are here now with the Panorama solutions, it would be very interesting, of course, if you can contribute with some examples, any initiatives that you know of protection of the geoheritage, where this type of protection has been done with this OSCM and with any other initiative for the conservation of this part of nature, of the geoheritage and the geodiversity. I don't know if maybe Rosemary or Aissa want to say something, or you, Manu?
Okay, yeah. In fact, yeah, Enrique has explained very well the answer. He has been speaking about when in Spain we call custody, in English is stewardship. Stewardship. He has been speaking about the stewardship. Yeah, another way for protection of heritage. I have another question for, in this case, for Rosemary. Rosemary, we have a question from Felipe Necio. Probably he comes from Brazil. Let me check. Okay, it's here. We have a website project for sharing photos of geological elements. It could be used to carry out a collaborative inventory of the geodiversity of Brazil. Could a project like that be interesting for Panorama?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Felipe, for this question. I would say yes, definitely. I mean, to carry out a collaborative inventory of geodiversity of a country in form of a web page where people can just share photos could be a very innovative approach, and thus it could definitely be an interesting solution in the understanding of Panorama. It depends a little bit because this is not fully clear in your question. As I mentioned before, it should already work. I mean, if you in a certain moment, if you say, yes, we have built up a collaborative inventory in Brazil in this way, and it's working well, we have good success with that, it's growing and we are using it actively, then I think it would be the moment to submit it as a solution on Panorama, for example, because as I mentioned before, we are publishing things that already have proven to work. So if this is already the case with your website, then definitely yes. And thanks for sharing the interesting website.
Thank you, Rosemary. Yes, of course. So welcome, Brazil. Another question we have for Aissa. That it comes from Fabio Loureiro from Portugal. He's asking, how can an entity be part of Panorama and share its experiences in a specific area?
Yes, thank you, Manuel, and thank you, Fabio, for your question. As I said, you can first upload a solution to the Panorama platform and share your experience with other practitioners. But also, if you, as your organization, you have a consortia or you have other organizations interested to activate a thematic community into a different, in a different specific area, we don't cover yet because we have 7, and you are really welcome. You just have to go through the onboarding process and be accepted by the steering committee. You have to fill in a template and then present us what motivates you to be part of the partnership, meet the staff time costs, and a very small contribution to the web platform technical management, and then you can be part of the Panorama partnership as a partner. But related to solution, you will be a solution provider. That's how we call people who register to the platform and submit the solution. We do not like now publish right away your solution. You just have to, sometime it can happen that the reviewer asks you for more details about the solution, just to make sure that this is the right project we should publish onto the platform. As you see, we have 800 and each single solution undergo a review process. And yes, thank you. If you need more information, you can also contact us through our email address, contact@panorama.solution for more details. Thank you, Manuel.
You're welcome, Aissa. Another question we have, Enrique, you will enjoy this one. The question is, how is an anonymous person is asking, how is the heritage evaluated in the context of cultural heritage? I know that this issue is very interesting for you, so yours is the floor.
Thank you, Manu. Yes, this is an issue that always arises with the management of heritage in general. I was mentioning in my talk, and you will later be able to access this. And also, if you look at the booklet that I mentioned, let me see if I can put it there. Yes, okay. I have given you the link there. Is that the relation between culture and nature is always very tight. The people that live in the territory have their own culture. Some things are considered with more value, some things with less value. Same happens with the natural objects, the natural element, the natural processes. Some may have high value, some may have not so much value. Everybody has killed mosquitoes, and they are natural elements. Nobody is going to criticize that. But the thing is that when you have natural and cultural elements together, how is the management? And the important thing is to be aware of what aspect needs to be preserved, what needs to be preserved, and the characteristics that lead to the preservation. For example, we have had World Heritage sites that are painted rocks. What is the heritage there? The painting or the rock? In most of the cases, it is the painting. So the rock itself probably has no value. The rock is the natural element, the painting is the cultural element. So that is an aspect that, in which case, whoever is the specialist in the paintings, the archaeologists, the anthropologists, whatever, will need to make sure that has another person, a specialist in the rock. The rock probably is not so important to be preserved, but it needs to be preserved in those areas where you have the painting, so you can preserve the paintings together with the rock. But the priority will be the paintings, not the rock. So if you need to destroy something for the preservation of another thing, it needs to be very clear what is heritage and what is not heritage, and what is natural. So you have natural heritage, and what is cultural and what is cultural heritage. So, and this is very frequent, these issues. And normally the solution comes from multidisciplinary teams that have archaeologists, geologists, biologists, with all the different specialities, paleontologists, ornithologists, entomologists, all these things, ecologists, and sociologists also, and then working together in an area towards the sustainable use and the preservation of those things that everybody agrees that are the important aspects to be preserved. It is very frequent cases, we have many cases, where you have to choose, because you cannot preserve everything. You have to choose what are your priorities. You have limited personnel, you have limited amount of money, and you need to make sure that what your priorities are kept and that is preserved. In some cases, you have to make sad choices. For example, you don't have enough money to preserve some other things, or so that it needs to be always agreed upon. And that is another aspect that the panorama solutions can help, because if you notice when Aissa was explaining the different blocks, in these blocks you can include different aspects that regarding the cultural heritage, the natural heritage, what has been done in specific cases for a specific for a site or for a type of heritage or a type of element, that other people may also have the same situation, the same problem, and they can use this block for their own purposes. No? So that's one of the things that we have found that are very, very useful in the case of the panorama solutions. I don't know if this is clear, or is it?
Yes, Enrique, very, very clear, as always. We have another question. In this end is Rosemary again, the one in charge. It comes from Margaret Pachak, sorry for my pronunciation. Margaret says, as I understand, anybody can submit solutions. So what is the advantage becoming a panorama partner? And how much does it cost? Important question.
Thank you, Margaret, for this question. Yes, very important question. So yes, it's fully correct that anybody who has access to internet can directly submit a solution on the PANORAMA website. The objective of persons who submit solutions is basically to share the success of their work with other practitioners worldwide, and that's why experts and practitioners submit solutions. And of course, most of them are also researching the platform to find other solutions that help them in their work. So this is one thing to participate. To be a PANORAMA partner is something different, because if you want to get a PANORAMA partner, this means, or you get a PANORAMA partner if your interest is to place a thematic community on the PANORAMA platform, and also to host and to manage this thematic community. And this to be or to become a PANORAMA partner provides you a whole different set of possibilities, opportunities, and also responsibilities. Because as a PANORAMA partner coordinating a thematic community, this means that you are also responsible to source solutions, to find organizations and experiences where you say, wow, this is so interesting and so successful. Wouldn't you like to submit your results and your work as a solution in our thematic community? You are responsible to curate the incoming thematic communities, or let's say to manage the review system. You are responsible to publish the reviewed solutions. That means you have some tasks in the management of the community and in the administration of the platform in your thematic area, but you also have the possibility then to be part of the PANORAMA partnership and to be involved in the decision taking, how to further develop PANORAMA, how to, what to do with the platform. All these questions are discussed in the steering group, and each PANORAMA partner is also part of the steering group. And you have a lot of additional possibilities to, let's say, to support your thematic community with organizing workshops, with providing webinars, etc., etc. So you have basically, as PANORAMA partner, you have the objective to foster a global learning in your thematic area as community coordinator. And as Aissa mentioned before, this can be done by one person, by one organization, or by a consortium of organizations. And related to the cost, I would we do have. I mean, it requires two things basically. It requires a bit of staff time. And the experience of our thematic community coordinators show that for a basic community management, it's necessary to have 20% of a full-time position. And in relation to the financial contributions, we are asking for 10,000 euro per year per thematic community. And if you are, for example, a consortium of organizations, then this can be shared among the organizations. And this financial contribution is basically to contribute to the maintenance and to the further development of the platform, because it's a living platform. It's improved all the time with new features, and so to all the partners contribute via such a financial contribution to that. If you allow, Manu, I see one more question which is very much related, which maybe I could directly take over. It's about if there are chances for a collaboration with private organizations across Europe in the PANORAMA network.
Go ahead. Yep. Only to point that this question comes from my country, from Basque Country.
Okay.
Geodiversitatea is the name we use in Basque language. So great. I'm very happy about this question. So go ahead, please.
Thank you, Manu. Basically, what we already do have, we do have private sector organizations who have also submitted solutions on PANORAMA. This is already existing and is working. I am not fully clear what you mean if there could be fostered a collaboration with private organizations across Europe. This sounds very interesting. I would like to maybe get directly an exchange to find out more what's the idea behind, because we are in PANORAMA also very open to try new things, even if they don't exist yet. So we are, as I mentioned, we are in a continuous development process. And if there are interesting ideas and interest, we could figure out together what is the need, the idea, and how could this look like, such a collaboration. So I would also like to invite to get directly in touch with us, and then we talk more about this idea and find out together. Because I forgot something in relation to this last questions about collaboration with private organizations, which I would like to add to my answer, because we do currently also have a thematic community called business engagement. And this is addressing the engagement of private sector companies in conservation. And maybe this is also at least interesting for you to have a look and to see what this is about, and if this is of importance for the question and this idea to collaborate with private organizations across Europe. Thank you very much, and back to Manu.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. Aissa, do you have anything to add about this topic?
Thank you, Rosemary, for replying to the question, but I just want to add that on the website we have a collaborator part I will like now share with you. We have a lot of organization, and as a growing partnership, we really welcome new initiative, very open to new ideas. But I just want to point out that it's not only about partners. We also recruit reviewers to for solution review. If you have an expertise in a certain area which is really relevant for us, you go through a training process, and also you are assigned solution onto your area of expertise, language, but also interest. This is a win-win situation between you and PANORAMA. Beside that, we also welcome really, now we have the Geoconservation and ProGeo, organization network as a collaborator. So if you really would like to be part of it, we welcome you. I will just now explore the thematic community here to just show the diversity of partners. Here, this is a thematic community on protected area, which is coordinated by IUCN and UNDP. You have Blue Solution, JZ. It's really rare iPhone. It's really, like a kind of broad, diverse, and if you have something to add and you think we can work together, it's always welcome. Yes, and Manu, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Aissa, for the adding. As you probably have realized, there are some links sent to the wall. A couple of them from the Spanish Geological Society and another one from the ASRG, we call the Association for the Protection of Mining and Geoheritage, Mining Heritage and Geoheritage from Spain, both. Also, another one from Murcia, Murcia 6, there in Spain, sent by Paco Guillem Mondejar, a colleague from the Spanish Society, and also you have the possibility to download the booklet that Enrique has referred previously, and as well the ProGeo leaflet sent by an anonymous. It's time to finish, unfortunately. Yeah. As a conclusion, we have to say that please share your initiatives and experience through PANORAMA. We are waiting for a solution for a healthy planet. Partnerships initiative to document and promote examples of inspiring, replicable solutions across a range of conservation and sustainable development topics, enabling close sectorial learning and inspiration as well. So please send us a lot of solutions. Regarding to geoconservation, those initiatives based on sustainability or sustainable use of geoheritage in protected areas or in other areas that are not protected. I'm speaking about geoparks, about biosphere reserves, about stewardship initiatives. Please, all of them contribute to local socioeconomic development and to an holistic natural conservation view, bio and geo. So please send us solutions from geo, from bio, from nature, but send us solutions. PANORAMA is waiting for you. Thank you very much indeed for your attention. We have been more than 150 people here in this webinar from all over the world, Africa, Asia, Europe, America, South America, North America. So we are really happy because we are thinking about arranging a new webinar if everything goes well. We will inform you in case. That's all, folks. So thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye. See you next one.